Okay, so in this video I want to talk about the Trojan and the Etruscan. The speculation is going to be my speculation video and this kind of thing about in history. So if we go to, for example, 1300 BC, we have a time period with the Trojan Volusians and the Hittites. And we know in some sense that the Trojan pay tribute in some ways to the Hittites. I don't know how they pay tribute, with money or some other materials, but just they pay tribute to the Hittites. For Hittite in that century was the new Hittite kingdom was one of the powers in the Bronze Age world. You have the Hittite, you have the Egyptians, you have the Babylonians. All of this was the big three. Then you have smaller kingdoms, much smaller, as for example the Macedonians, the Trojans, or other kingdom. Or then you have local people, for example, people that are more similar to the Celts, the Thracians, or the Scythians, or these kind of smaller people at that time period. And then if we jump forward, we come to around 1200, and then we start working to the Bronze Age collapse with the migration of different people and local people together. It was a mix with different kinds of people. And here we come to my speculation here is that, always I should say in this video from the start, is that I do not know if that is the case or not. But my speculation here is that one of that so-called the sea people was that we know today. One of them we know today is the Racina, or other name for them is the Etruskan. But they are local people living in today's Turkey at that time, before the Bronze Age collapse. But they're working as mercenaries in some ways for the Trojans as foot soldiers, not the charioteers, but the foot soldiers. And they are similar as, for example, later on as the Hellenistic Greek world, for example, have Celtic foot soldiers as a crack force working for the Hellenistic power, or for example, the Roman used Liberian cavalries, as same as Carthaginian used Celt and other people to their army. The Trojans, I don't know. Obviously, the Trojans have also a different name, but we know we can call them the Trojan. Everybody will understand them. The Trojan, the people like the Trojan wore all this kind of Trojan. But there's a different time period of Troy. That is also is the complicated thing. We have different Troys. We don't have just one Troy. We have different Troy. But I just want to talk about the Troy from 1300 to 12 to 1100 BC. This kind of Troy. So I want to talk about the Troy 100 years before the Bronze Age collapse and the Troy under the Bronze Age collapse. So here is my speculation. So my speculation is that the local people serving the Trojan, but after some years, we come to the Bronze Age collapse. And in some ways, the people there see their chance to attack Troy, because Troy was not as strong as it was from the start. So the people like them, probably the Trojan will call them the barbarian in their Trojan civilization. This kind of people attacked Troy from different angles. Troy, the Hittite kingdoms, the Macedonian kingdom. They live in the same part of that world as the Macedonians in Greek, or the part in the world as Turkey. But there was different people serving the bigger kingdom, and they see their chance to do revolt against this kingdom. So one obviously was not just the Etruscan, but lots of other people too together in Turkey that was not Trojan or Hittites that started rebellions against their overlords. So after there was a long fight, there was famine, different things all together, they sort of revolt and defeat the Trojan kingdom in battle. But after that was also a problem for when one group also attacked the other group. So it's like first sorry. So first we have attack against Troy. And then after that battle was finished, after Trojan lost the loss of the power, the other group attacked that people that attacked the Troy. There were also kind of a barbarian groups in Turkey in Bronze Age. So it's similar, for example, if I can say in comparison, for example, with the Yurchi and the Xiongnu. First, the Yurchi was very powerful, working with Han Chinese, but then the Xiongnu gets more power and push out the Yurchi, and Yurchi attacked the Sakas. There was a Bactrians in Afghanistan, the Greek kingdom of Afghanistan. They were pushed out, and they pushed out other people and so on, like a rolling ball, rolling, take it with them every time they roll and this kind of thing. And I think that is similar in some sense with the Bronze Age collapse and migration, is that other group of people push out the other ones. So that one of the group was pushed out, and they seek a new homeland. That group, one of them was what I think was the Etruscans, and they come to Italy, and they was probably a small fight with the Villanova culture, and after that assimilate with the Villanova culture, and together they start a new culture together when they live in Italy and this kind of thing. So what I think is that the Etruscan are one of the local people that live in Turkey that work under the Trojan, and after the war they left that part because their homeland was destroyed. They cannot live there anymore because there was too many powerful other people there to push them out, and this kind of thing. So yeah, so obviously it was not. I don't think that was just only with the warriors. I think it was just it was women and children moving from a place, because if you always move from a place when you cannot live there anymore because of war, famine, and other things. And when I think probably the people there, that the people we know today as the Etruscan, probably was seafaring people, similar in some sense to the Phoenicians, that they was capable to use like ships, small boats and kind of ships, and after, obviously, because we know that the Villanova culture is from 1000, and so it's good of time period before we come to Etruscan. Etruscan start from like 900 to 800, and there was the Roman Empire assimilate the Etruscan around, I think it was around 400 BC, around there, 400 BC. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's earlier. I think 400 BC. The Roman defeated the Etruscan. Obviously, the Etruscan was not just one kingdom; it was many different kingdoms in Italy, and so there was also a big reason, in some sense, that there was first there was attack of different other people. For example, the Greek, they were attacked of the Celts, and then the attack of the Romans. So obviously the first people that was attacked before the Roman or the Greeks was the Etruscans. Of the Celts, one group of the Celts, one group. So I think that is the same here with the Bronze Age collapse, is that different people was attacked with other different people, and so they maybe have very similar culture. Maybe some of them was similar, just rival tribes, the same people. They attacked her because their place maybe have more places, more food and all this kind of thing, and to that part of the world, that part of that kingdom, and this kind of thing. So yeah, so that is just my speculation here for the whole thing, and obviously the collapse of, for example, the Hittite kingdom was also because of other, for example, the Shaskas, and other group of, but probably Hittite would say barbarian people, but they always say local people that have maybe different culture, different custom and so on, but they live in the same place, as maybe they don't have maybe that advanced war machines or build big city as, for example, the Hattusha that the Hittites have. So they serve them as mercenaries, or they serve them as or they were slaves to them, and they do revolt. And maybe one reason, for example, why the Etruscans, one of the Etruscan fall was because of the slave revolt. But the big problem here is obviously that with the Etruscans, the problem is that lots of the information we have today that we can read in history books, different kind of history books, is from what the Romans have told us about the Etruscans or the Racina. So we don't, extremely little information is from the Etruscan point of view. So most of them are from the Romans. So we don't know. So if we go, for example, to 1200 BC, and we look at Toscana in Italy at that time period, that time age, we probably not going to find anything from the Etruscan at that time. So that is interesting. But we know from year 1000, we know the Villanova culture was in Italy. So there's something interesting here with the Villanovas and the Racina. Are they the same people, or are they totally different people? Are they combination between two different people together being Etruscans? Are one of the sea people mixing with the Villanova culture? Do they create the Etruscan when they are combined as one as one group of people, and this kind of thing? So that is just a huge complicated thing in speculation. All of this kind of thing is very complicated, because we have to understand, we have to look at the time period, and we have to look at the place when the Etruscan live in. Like, we know that the Etruscan was there from 900 to 400 as a standalone people. Then they were assimilated to the Roman Empire as other people, for example, the Samnites and other kind of people in today's Italy. But we know that the Etruscan have a language that was not Indo-European language, was standalone language. So they don't speak the same language as the Latin people, as for example the Romans. They have a standalone culture. They don't speak the same language as the Greeks. But we don't know what kind of language the Etruscans speak. And we know that they cannot be related to the Hittites, because the Hittites speak one of the first people in the world that speak Indo-European language are the Hittites. So they cannot be related to them either, because they don't have speak the same language. And this kind of thing. But we don't know what kind of language. If the Villanova people speak a local language that was extinct after some time. So that is also a bit complicated here. So what my speculation here, what I think, my personal opinion, I think that the Etruscan are a local people from Turkey that serve the Trojan, and after the collapse they migrate to Italy, and they come in connection with the Villanova culture, and the Villanova culture probably go into them, and they mix together, and they start to be a new culture in Italy, and then later on be Etruscans. So this is what I think what happened in that time period from 1100 and 100 years later to 1000, then 800, then we have the Etruscan kingdoms, different kingdom in Italy, the Etruscans, and this kind of thing. So it's totally possible because of the time gap, because of from 1200 to year 1000 and 800. So we have a long time. So it's totally possible for a migration people to migrate from Turkey with ships, with family and women and children, families to Italy, to one part of Italy, starting to settle there. So that is absolutely possible. So that is I don't have any proof of that, if that is the case or not. But and then we come to art, the artwork, for example. But later on, when the Etruscans get very rich, for example, the iron mines, they was able to pay different artists, for example, from Egypt, from Greek, or they can buy good food from, or beautiful colored clothing from, for example, the Phoenicians, from Cyprus or Tunisia. That was later on turned to Carthage. Carthago. So they have lots of possibility because of the richness. That is the same thing, for example, if you you go to Hallstatt in Austria, today's Austria, you can find a little ivory, for example, elephant ivory. But that did not mean that there was elephants there. It would just mean that they were very rich. They can buy ivory from far away, from Spain, and Spain get it from North Africa, from Berbers, and they come in trade to Austria, for example, with the Austrian people at the Hallstatt, the Celtic places, and so on. The same with the Etruscans, like there was very trade power, because they have the connection with the Phoenicians and connection with the Carthaginians, and all of these kind of things. So even if they have art, that is art that looks like art from the Hittite kingdom, they can get this maybe from, for example, when they was like seafaring, because the Greek called them pirates, but obviously the Greek also have pirates in their culture, so we cannot, anyways, the Greek called the Etruscan pirates. So it's totally possible that one of the sea people was the Etruscans, and they attacked different weaker kingdoms, for example the Trojan, the Hittite, and take with them war booty, and they take back to them to Italy, to Toscana and other places in Italy. So we have a problem here. Is that was the Etruscan a local people that working as mercenary for the Trojan, and they originally live in Italy? Or was there the local people live in Turkey, serving the Trojan or the Hittites, and migrate to Italy after the collapse? So we have two ways to go. One of them is local people from Italy. The other part is local people serving the Trojan or the Hittites, and migrate later on to Italy, and all of this kind of thing. So that is what I mean. It's a complicated thing. We don't know what is what. We don't know if there was red is Italy, green is Turkey, and all of these things. So that is the biggest complicated thing. For we have to find art and artifacts, like or something that can tell us 100% for certainty that the Etruscans have always lived in Italy. They cannot question that, but so long we can question that, we have no answer. It's no question. We don't have any answer what is what, where they originally come from. We don't know what kind of language they speak. We have so little written down from them because different reasons. Maybe the Celt destroy something, the Roman destroy something, and other people, maybe Greeks destroy some things. When the Italian Greeks attack them. So we have lots of extremely much lots of information beside the only information we have is picture and their graves to show us what they use. But that is the only thing we have. That is the only thing we have for all people today to see. We don't know anything else. We only know what the Romans or the Greeks tell us. The other information we have also lost is from the Carthaginians. The Carthaginians will have also connection with the Etruscans. That's actually very interesting here, is that the Etruscans and the Carthaginians was more friends and allies than there was with the Greeks or the Romans. So that is interesting, that the Carthaginians was not as aggressive against the Carthaginian was not as aggressive against the Etruscan as the Greeks or the Roman was. And so they have something that the Etruscan was interesting for the Carthaginian, and Carthaginian have something that was they think interesting that the Etruscan have. So that is the other part that is lost. That is the third information that is lost. So we have two information. It's from the Greek and the Roman, and they don't like the Etruscans. So obviously they don't want to say good things. They obviously what the Greeks say about the Etruscans, that they drink too much wine, they let their women to be too free, they was too gluttonous, they show off too much with the gold and bling and all this kind of thing. The Romans say the same because the Roman copied the Greek, what Greeks say. But we don't have the information what the Carthaginian tells about the Etruscans, because the Carthaginian Empire that in Tunisia was destroyed of the Romans and later belonged to be a Roman province in North Africa and Tunisia. Today's Tunisia. So that is the sad thing here, is that the information from the Etruscans themselves is lost, with written down information is lost. We know that they have a written language, and they're written down in their own ways, but they are lost, so we cannot read long description. We know in some interesting fact that the Etruscans, the elite graves, have depiction from the Trojan War. So we see a mythical depiction. We see paintings with Achilles and Achilles and Ajax executing prisoners. So that is interesting why they show that depiction. Obviously, that was very popular. For example, today, we have later on what can I say? For example, it's very similar. For example, in Europe, in the 700 or 1600, we have lots of French depiction of French kingdom and all this kind of thing. But it's interesting, but also the depiction is from the Trojan War in the elite graves. It's the painting with Ajax and Achilles, and other scene of Ajax, Achilles, and so on. So there was very, very interesting about the Trojan War, the elite Etruscans. And we know that one of the guard they believe in was a boy that come from the earth, but speak as an old man. That was also very popular for the Etruscan. They believe in that system, and they believe in weather and lightning, and other things like from animals and all this kind of thing. But so they have most of the depiction they have in their graves from banquets and all this kind of thing was maybe, just speculation here, maybe from depiction of from the Trojan history. So maybe lots of the mythical depiction of the Etruscan we see in graves, that the paintings are from the Trojan story, maybe are not from the Etruscan banquet. Maybe are just they want to, when they die, maybe they believe that they're gonna come to that place in that mythical story, and they can live as, for example, as Valhalla, as the Viking believe in that paradise life. So that is one. It's just a speculation here. All of the paintings we see of the Etruscan in their graves are not there. It's not about them. It's about the Trojan or the people. So here is the interesting thing: is that are they? Maybe that can give us a hint. Maybe, I don't say that is 100% or not. I say there's a maybe. Is that the information we have here is that maybe they show their part of their victory against the Trojans, but they maybe depict themselves in a more modern light, the Etruscan. Maybe they show themselves more like a noble warriors when they execute the prisoners. Maybe the people we see here are the Etruscans, but they depict themselves as the mythical heroes instead of themselves. So maybe the sea people, one of the sea people, the Racina, the Etruscans, showing how they defeat a bigger kingdom, and they want to remember that for eternity. For example, as the Romans showed the Hadrian column to remember their victory against the Dacians and the Sarmatians. And this can be so. Remember, all I think I say here right now is just my speculation. That the depiction we see in the graves of the execution, the battles, are glorified depiction of victory. For example, Assyrians have it, the Egyptians show it, the Cambodians show it, the Khmerian dynasty in Cambodia show it when the victory against the Vietnamese. So lots of people in different time periods, different kingdoms and civilization show depiction and their victory. For example, we can see in I ignore that, but that is too. I have to be more certain what I say right in that part. So I ignore that because it's maybe sensitive to say this. So we ignore that. But lots of civilization show victory over other people in different light. So it's totally possible here when the Etruscans come home from their victory, from their raid in Turkey. Then they tell their women and children that they defeat a big power. Obviously, it was very impressive for their sons and daughters to hear how the father can defeat a big kingdom, for example, the Hittite or the Trojan or the Macedonians. And they want to depict that to show themselves how powerful they are, and in their depictions, so that to tell everybody, look here, I defeat the Trojan, I defeat the Hittites, and this kind of thing. The same as the Egyptians say to us, look here, I defeat the evil barbarian, the sea people. Look at me, how powerful I am. I am a big giant with a big bow and lots of arrows and lots of boats in the sea. And this kind of thing. So yeah, that is just my speculation, is that the Etruscans showing their victory over the people we know in pop culture as the Trojan. Obviously they have a different name. I don't remember their name. They have a similar name to other name, but it's complicated for me. I will confuse the names, but the Trojans. Obviously the Trojan from 13 to 1100 BC. There was the feat of different migration. One of them was probably the Etruscans, and the Etruscan showed the case. But here we come back to the thing start to say from the beginning. Was there local people living in Italy or local people living in Turkey that served under the Trojan? But anyways, this talked about if they're going to Turkey, back from Turkey to Italy, they can show their victory against the Trojans. So that is the reason probably why they show the defeat of the Trojan in the hands of the Greeks, in the painting of the mythical Ajax and Achilles. So there is the interesting thing here, is that they show that depiction, but we don't know what they show, not anything. So there was very interesting that scene. So that is just what I think, that they just show their victory against the Trojan.